Marcus Chen pressed his palm against the cool metal of the observation window, watching the swirl of cosmic dust dance beyond the reinforced glass. Station Nexus 7 hummed quietly around him, its mechanical heartbeat a constant reminder that they floated in the vast emptiness between worlds. As the night shift marine biologist, he had grown accustomed to the solitude, finding peace in monitoring the aquatic systems that kept their small corner of space habitable. The corridor stretched empty before him, bathed in the soft blue glow of emergency lighting. His footsteps echoed against the polymer flooring as he made his rounds, checking each hydroponic bay and water recycling unit. Everything appeared normal until he reached the lower cargo area. A soft whimper stopped him mid-stride. Marcus tilted his head, straining to locate the source of the sound. There, huddled between two supply crates, was a small figure that made his breath catch. The child couldn't have been more than 10 standard years old, with skin that shimmered like starlight and hair that seemed to capture and reflect the station's ambient lighting. The youngster looked up at him with enormous violet eyes, and Marcus immediately recognized the distinctive features of a Zephyrian. The child's clothes were torn and dirty, hanging loose on a frame far too thin for health. Dried tears had left tracks down pale cheeks, and the little one's lips were cracked from dehydration. Without hesitation, Marcus knelt beside the child, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. He had studied enough xenobiology to know that Zephyrians were generally peaceful, but this little one was clearly terrified and likely didn't speak standard galactic standard. "Hey there," Marcus whispered, reaching slowly into his jacket pocket. He always carried emergency nutrition bars during his rounds, and he pulled one out now, unwrapping it carefully. "Are you hungry?" The child's eyes locked onto the food with desperate intensity. Tiny hands reached out, then pulled back as if afraid of punishment. Marcus set the bar on the ground between them and backed away slightly, giving the youngster space to decide. Within moments, small fingers snatched the food and devoured it with the urgency of true starvation. Marcus felt his heart clench as he watched. How long had this child been hiding here? How had security missed a Zephyrian refugee in their cargo bay? "What's your name?" he asked gently, though he wasn't sure if the child would understand. Zephyrian vocal cords could produce sounds similar to human speech, but their language was completely different. "Kael," came the whispered response, surprising Marcus with its clarity. The child had learned some basic galactic standard, probably from necessity, during whatever journey had brought him here. Marcus smiled warmly. "I'm Marcus. You're safe now, Kael, but I need to find your family. Are you alone?" Kael's expression shifted to one of panic, and he shook his head vigorously. "No, Mama working. Mama said hide. Mama said no humans." The warning sent a chill down Marcus's spine, not from fear of danger, but from understanding. Zephyrians had good reason to be wary of other species. Their homeworld had been destroyed in a conflict that many blamed on human colonial expansion, though Marcus knew the truth was far more complicated. Before he could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the cargo bay, multiple sets, moving with purpose and urgency. Marcus helped Kael to his feet just as 3 figures emerged from the shadows between the containers. The woman leading them took Marcus's breath away. She moved with fluid grace that seemed to defy the artificial gravity of the station, her long silver hair flowing behind her like liquid moonlight. Her skin held the same ethereal shimmer as Kael's, but where the child appeared fragile, she radiated strength and determination. Her violet eyes, so similar to Kael's, blazed with protective fury as they fixed on Marcus. She spoke rapidly in Zephyrian, her voice musical even in her anger. Kael responded in the same language, gesturing toward Marcus and the empty nutrition bar wrapper. The woman's expression shifted slightly, confusion replacing some of the hostility. "You fed him," she said, in accented but clear galactic standard, her voice carrying the melodic quality typical of her species. "Why?" Marcus straightened, meeting her gaze directly. "Because he was hungry," he replied simply. "Because he's just a child." The woman studied him for a long moment, her companions flanking her protectively. They were clearly her people, probably other refugees who had managed to stow away on some transport vessel. Marcus realized he was looking at a family trying to survive in a universe that had taken everything from them. "I am Serafina," she said finally, her hand resting protectively on Kael. "This is my son. We mean no harm to your station." "I know. And I want to help." Serafina's eyes narrowed as she studied Marcus's face, searching for deception or hidden motives. Her people had learned to be suspicious of kindness from strangers, especially humans. Too many promises had been broken, too many hopes crushed under the weight of political convenience. "Help," she repeated, the word carrying bitter undertones. "Your kind has helped us before, helped us right into exile." Marcus felt the weight of his species' history settle on his shoulders, but he didn't look away from her accusatory stare. "Not all humans are the same, just like not all Zephyrians are the same. I'm just one person who doesn't want to see a child starve." Kale tugged at his mother's flowing robes, speaking rapidly in their native tongue. Serafina's expression softened slightly as she listened to her son's explanation. The musical quality of their language fascinated Marcus, each word seeming to flow into the next like a gentle stream. "He says you are kind," Serafina translated, though her posture remained defensive. "He says you didn't demand anything in return." "Because I don't want anything in return," Marcus assured her. "Look, I know this station's layout better than anyone. I can help you find safer places to rest, better access to food and water. The cargo bays are swept regularly by security drones. You won't stay hidden here much longer." One of Serafina's companions, an older male with intricate silver markings along his temples, spoke urgently in Zephyrian. His tone suggested disagreement, possibly warning against trusting the human. Serafina responded with what sounded like firm reassurance before turning back to Marcus. "Theron believes this is a trap, that you will report us to your authorities and have us detained or worse." Marcus nodded, understanding the fear. "I can't promise that other humans won't do exactly that if they find you, but I can promise that I won't be the one to turn you in. My shift ends in 3 hours. The next marine biologist won't be on duty for another 6 hours after that. That gives you time to move to a better location." Serafina tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made Marcus feel exposed. Her violet eyes seemed to look past his words and into his intentions. "Why should we trust you? What do you gain from helping refugees?" The question struck deeper than Marcus expected. He thought of his sister, lost in the same conflict that had destroyed the Zephyrian homeworld. She had been part of a humanitarian mission that never returned, caught in the crossfire between expanding empires and desperate populations. "Because someone should have helped my sister when she needed it. Because if we don't help each other, we're all just floating alone in the dark." Something in his voice must have convinced her, because Serafina's rigid posture relaxed slightly. She exchanged glances with her companions, some silent communication passing between them. Finally, she nodded. "Show us," she said simply. Marcus led them through the maintenance corridors, avoiding the main passages where they might encounter other crew members. The station felt different with the Zephyrians following behind him, their presence adding an exotic energy to the familiar spaces. He found himself acutely aware of Serafina's graceful movements, the way she seemed to glide rather than walk. They reached an abandoned laboratory in the research section, one that hadn't been used since budget cuts reduced the station's scientific staff. Marcus keyed in his access code and gestured them inside. "This should be safer," he explained, as they entered the darkened space. "It's not on the regular patrol routes and the environmental systems are still active." Serafina moved to the center of the room, her companions checking the exits and corners with practiced efficiency. "You would risk your position here for strangers?" she asked, genuine curiosity replacing suspicion in her voice. "Maybe," Marcus admitted. "But you're not really strangers anymore, are you? I know Kale's name.
I know you're his mother. I know you're trying to protect your people." She turned to face him fully, and for the first time, Marcus saw past the protective mask she wore. Beneath the wariness and strength, he glimpsed exhaustion and vulnerability. The weight of responsibility for her people's survival was clearly taking its toll. "We have been running for months, from system to system, always unwelcome, always moving on. Kale has not had a real home since he was very small. Where are you trying to go?" "Anywhere that will have us," Serafina replied with a sad smile. "We are not particular about destinations anymore." As their eyes met across the dimly lit laboratory, Marcus felt something shift between them. The initial suspicion was giving way to understanding, and beneath that understanding, he detected the spark of something deeper and more dangerous.
Over the following weeks, Marcus found himself making excuses to visit the abandoned laboratory. What had started as simple humanitarian aid was evolving into something far more complex. He brought food, clean water, and medical supplies, but found himself staying longer each time, drawn into conversations with Serafina that revealed the depth of her intelligence and the tragedy of her people's situation. "Your homeworld," Marcus said one evening as they sat across from each other in the laboratory's soft lighting. "What was it like before the war?" Serafina's expression grew distant, her violet eyes reflecting memories of a place that no longer existed. "Imagine oceans that sang with the morning light, forests where the trees grew in perfect spirals toward twin suns. Our cities floated on the water, connected by bridges that could shift with the tides." Her voice carried such longing that Marcus felt his chest tighten with empathy. "It sounds beautiful." "It was," she whispered. "Kale was born there, in the floating gardens where my grandmother taught children to speak with the waves. He remembers none of it now." Marcus watched as she unconsciously touched a pendant at her throat, a small crystal that seemed to hold its own inner light. "Is that from your homeworld?" She nodded, lifting the pendant to catch the laboratory's ambient glow. "The last piece I was able to save. It contains water from the sacred springs where my people have performed bonding ceremonies for thousands of years." The intimacy of the revelation surprised them both. Serafina had not intended to share something so personal, and Marcus felt honored by her trust. In the silence that followed, he became acutely aware of how close they were sitting, how the station's recycled air carried the subtle, sweet scent that seemed to emanate from her skin. "The bonding ceremonies," he asked carefully, "are they like human marriage rituals?" A faint blush colored Serafina's cheeks, the shimmer in her skin intensifying slightly. "Similar, but more complete. Zephyrians bond not just emotionally and physically, but mentally as well. We share thoughts, feelings, even dreams." "That sounds incredible," Marcus said, though he couldn't hide a note of wistfulness. "Humans struggle enough with regular communication." Serafina laughed, a sound like silver bells that made Marcus's pulse quicken. "Your species communicates better than you think. Your actions speak louder than words ever could." Their eyes met and held, the air between them electric with unspoken possibilities. Marcus found himself leaning closer, drawn by forces he didn't fully understand. Serafina's breath caught, and for a moment, the vast differences between their species seemed irrelevant. The sound of Kale stirring in his makeshift bed across the room broke the spell. Both adults pulled back, sudden awareness of the complications flooding over them. Serafina was a refugee dependent on Marcus's protection. He was risking everything he had built on this station. The attraction between them was as dangerous as it was undeniable. "I should go," Marcus said reluctantly, though he made no move to leave. "Yes," Serafina agreed, though her voice lacked conviction. Over the next few days, their meetings became charged with tension. Every accidental touch, every shared glance, every moment of connection deepened the bond forming between them. Marcus found himself thinking about her during his regular duties, imagining her laugh, remembering the way moonlight seemed to live in her hair. Serafina was fighting her own battle. In quiet moments, she caught herself watching the entrance to the laboratory, waiting for Marcus's arrival with an anticipation that frightened her. Her people needed her leadership, her focus, but increasingly her thoughts turned to the human who had shown them such unexpected kindness. The relationship between Marcus and Serafina blossomed in secret over the following weeks, stolen moments in hidden corners of the station becoming precious beyond measure. They discovered that physical intimacy between their species was not only possible, but transcendent, each touch revealing new depths of connection that neither had imagined possible. During their encounters, Marcus learned that Zephyrian physiology was more sensitive than human, every caress amplified through neural pathways that seemed designed for profound emotional bonding. Serafina's skin would luminesce under his touch, creating patterns of light that mapped their passion in real time. When they held each other, she could sense his emotions as clearly as her own, the beginning stages of the mental bonding her people were capable of. "This is dangerous," she whispered one night as they lay entwined in the laboratory's darkness, her head resting on his chest where she could hear his heartbeat gradually returning to normal. "I know," Marcus replied, stroking her silver hair. "For both of us." The danger was very real. Station regulations strictly prohibited fraternization with unregistered aliens, and the penalties for harboring refugees could include imprisonment or exile to one of the mining colonies. For Serafina, involvement with a human could be seen as betrayal by some of her people, who blamed humanity for their homeworld's destruction. But the risks paled beside the intensity of their connection. When Serafina shared her memories through their partial mental link, Marcus experienced flashes of her destroyed world, feeling her grief as if it were his own. In return, she saw his childhood, his sister's loss, the loneliness that had driven him to the outer stations where he could lose himself in work. Their secret was becoming harder to maintain. Marcus's behavior had changed enough that his colleagues were beginning to notice. His supervisor, Commander Torres, called him in for a meeting that made his palms sweat. "Your work performance has been exemplary as always," Torres said, reviewing Marcus's recent reports. "But Dr. Kim mentioned you've been accessing restricted areas during off-duty hours. Care to explain?" Marcus had rehearsed this moment, preparing plausible explanations for his unusual movements around the station. "I've been conducting research on deep space water purification systems. Some of the old laboratories have equipment that's not available in the active research areas." Torres studied him carefully. "Personal research? That's unusual for you, Chen. You've always been focused on your assigned duties." "I'm thinking about publishing," Marcus lied smoothly. "Career advancement requires publication credits." The commander seemed satisfied with the explanation, but Marcus could see suspicion lingering in his eyes. As he left the office, Marcus realized their time was running out. Soon someone would discover the refugees, and all of them would face consequences neither could fully predict. That evening, he found Serafina waiting for him, with news that changed everything. Theron has made contact with a Zephyrian colony ship. They are 3 weeks away, but they have agreed to take us aboard. Marcus felt his world tilt. "That's wonderful news," he said, though his voice sounded hollow even to his own ears. Seraphina's expression was unreadable. "Yes, we will have a home again." They stared at each other across the laboratory, the unspoken question hanging between them like a barrier. Marcus could go with them, abandon his life on the station, and join the Zephyrian colony. But what kind of life would that be for either of them? He would be forever an outsider among her people, and she would carry the burden of knowing he had sacrificed everything for her. 3 weeks, Marcus repeated numbly. 3 weeks, she confirmed. That night, their lovemaking carried the desperate intensity of borrowed time. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered endearment was shadowed by the knowledge that their love story was reaching its inevitable conclusion. When Seraphina's skin blazed with light beneath Marcus's hands, he memorized every pattern, knowing he might never see such beauty again. In the aftermath, as they lay holding each other, Seraphina broke the silence that had settled between them like a shroud. "Come with us," she said quietly. Marcus felt his heart stop. "What?" "Come with us," she repeated, raising her head to meet his eyes. "Join the colony. We could have a life together." The offer was everything he wanted and everything he couldn't accept. "Seraphina, I know it would be difficult. I know my people would need time to accept a human among them. But you've already proven that our species can coexist. You've shown kindness when others showed only suspicion." Marcus cupped her face in his hands, her skin still warm from their passion. "And what about your leadership? Your people need you to be focused on their survival, not divided between duty and love." "Perhaps they need both," she said stubbornly. "Perhaps they need to see that love can transcend the hatred that destroyed our world." Before Marcus could respond, the laboratory's emergency lighting activated, bathing them in harsh red illumination. Through the walls, they could hear the distinctive sound of security boots marching in formation. Someone had discovered their secret, and their time had just run out.
The security sweep found nothing in the laboratory except Marcus Chen conducting routine maintenance on dormant equipment. By the time Commander Torres led the team into the space, the Zephyrian refugees had vanished into the station's ventilation system, following escape routes Marcus had mapped out weeks earlier during their contingency planning. "Odd time for maintenance, Chen," Torres observed, his flashlight beam sweeping the room. "Couldn't sleep," Marcus replied, with practiced casualness. "Figured I might as well be productive." The commander's eyes narrowed. "We received reports of unauthorized life signs in this section. You haven't noticed anything unusual?" "Just the usual station noises. You know how these old laboratory sections can echo." After the security team departed, Marcus spent a sleepless night wondering if he would ever see Seraphina again. But the next evening, she appeared in his quarters like a silver ghost, having somehow bypassed the station's security sensors. "How did you—" Marcus began. "Zephyrian ships are designed for stealth," she explained with a faint smile. "Some of those techniques work well in enclosed spaces, too." Relief flooded through him as he pulled her into his arms, breathing in her familiar scent. "I thought they had caught you." "Not yet," she said, though her expression remained troubled. "But it's only a matter of time. Our departure must be accelerated." They had planned for this possibility. Using his security clearances, Marcus had identified a maintenance shuttle that could be modified for longer-range travel. It would mean sacrificing his career and possibly facing criminal charges. But the alternative was watching Seraphina and her people captured or worse. "The shuttle is ready," he told her. "I've programmed a course to the coordinates Theron provided. You'll have enough supplies for the journey to your colony ship." Serafina was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. "You're not coming with us." It wasn't a question. Somehow she had read his decision in his expression, or perhaps through their deepening mental connection. Marcus felt his heart break a little more. "I can't," he said quietly. "If I disappear with you, they'll track the shuttle. If I stay and report it stolen after a delay, you'll have time to reach safety before they can mount a pursuit." "You're sacrificing yourself for us," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm making sure the woman I love has a chance at freedom," Marcus corrected. They held each other in silence, both understanding that this might be their last night together. When they made love, it was with an intensity that bordered on desperation, as if they could somehow store the memory in their bones to carry forward. As dawn approached, Serafina dressed quietly while Marcus watched, memorizing every graceful movement. At the door, she turned back to him with tears gleaming in her violet eyes. "This is not how our story ends," she said with quiet determination. "Serafina, no," she interrupted. "I know what you think you are doing, playing the noble sacrifice, but you underestimate both my people's gratitude and my own determination. We will find a way back to you." Before Marcus could respond, she was gone, leaving only the lingering scent of otherworldly flowers and the echo of an impossible promise. The next 24 hours passed like a fever dream. Marcus performed his duties with mechanical precision, waiting for the inevitable discovery of the missing shuttle. When it came, his acting skills proved sufficient to convince investigators that he had noticed nothing suspicious during his shift. 3 months later, as Marcus faced a disciplinary hearing for negligent security protocols, a message arrived that changed everything. The Zephyrian colony had formally petitioned the Galactic Council for asylum, and their case had been accepted. More importantly, they had requested a specific human as their official liaison, citing his expertise in interspecies relations and proven commitment to refugee welfare. Commander Torres delivered the news with barely concealed amazement. "Apparently, you've been offered a position that comes with full diplomatic immunity and a substantial salary increase. Care to explain how you impressed an alien government you supposedly never met?" "I believe in showing kindness to strangers, sir. Sometimes that kindness is remembered." 6 weeks later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the colony ship Luminous Dawn, watching as familiar silver hair caught the light of a new sun. Serafina approached with Kale at her side, the boy now healthy and laughing as he chased other children through the ship's gardens. "I told you this wasn't how our story ends," she said, taking Marcus's hand in hers. "No, I think this is where it really begins." As the colony ship entered orbit around a world that would become the new Zephyrian homeland, Marcus and Serafina watched their two peoples work together to build something neither could have achieved alone. Their love had become a bridge between species, proof that understanding and compassion could triumph over fear and prejudice. Kale ran up to them, tugging on Marcus's sleeve. "Uncle Marcus, will you help us plant the first garden? Mama says you know about growing things." Marcus looked down at the boy who had started it all with his hunger and courage, then at the woman whose love had transformed his understanding of what was possible between different worlds. "I'd be honored," he said, squeezing Serafina's hand as they followed Kale toward their new future together.